Hi everyone. My name is Aljan Rose G. Sereno, and I'm going to proceed on the topic that which has already stopped. It was on March 17. Okay, so let's start. On March 17, paid Suiza Medical Supply Company 3,750 pesos on account. So si Samuel nibayad siya sa Suiza Medical Supply Company in the amount of 3,750 on account. So sa ato ang journal entry, kaya itong ibutang diha una kay ang March 17, which is the date. Ito. Dahil humatubot ang ato ang debit kay accounts payable tungod kay nigamit man tag liability on the amount of 3,750. Then proceed ta niya sa credit, which is the cash, kay nakuhaan or na-decrease man ang ato ang asset, which is the cash, on the amount of 3,750 as well. Dayon, it is to record the medical supplies on account. Now let's proceed on March 20. So on March 20, paid telephone expense, which is 850. So si Samuel, kanibayad siya og telephone expense, which has the amount of 850. Sa ato ang journal entry, same principle, atong unang butang kay ang date, which is March 20. Dayon, let's proceed on the debit, which is telephone expense. Kaya ni-increase man atong expenses and according sa rule, ato siyang i-debit. Atong ibutang niya sa iyang account kay 850. Sa ato ang credit, kay ito, ato siyang ibutang og cash, kay nakuhaan man atong asset nga cash tungod sa nabayad nato nga telephone expense. And again, with the same amount of 850. Dayon, it is to record the telephone expense. Now, let's proceed on March 21. So, on March 21, paid miscellaneous expense 1,150. So si Samuel, nibayad daw siya og mga miscellaneous expenses in the amount of 1,150. Sa ato ang ibutang dito sa ato ang journal entry kay March 21, ang ato ang debit kay miscellaneous expense, kay ni-increase pa nato ang expense and according sa rule, ato siyang i-debit on the amount of 1,150. Dayon, ang ato ang i-credit kay cash kay nakuhaan man ato ang asset nga cash tungod sa nabayad nga miscellaneous expense with the same amount of 1,150. It is also to show na to record the miscellaneous expense. Now let's proceed to March 22. March 22 received 27,000 from patients billed on March 15. So si Samuel naka-receive siya 27,500 na nakuha niya ato pang March 15. So ang what do you call this? Atong unang ibutang kay ato ang date, which is March 22. Then atong debit kay cash kay kita may naka-receive, so ito ibutang po with the same amount of 27,500 and with the credit of accounts receivable with the same amount of 27,500. Diha, it is to record the payments received from March 15. Now, let's proceed on March 23. Sa March 23, acquired additional medical supplies from Suiza Medical Supply Company on account of 9,100. So, si Samuel daw kay naka-acquire siya mga additional supplies sa Suiza Medical Supply Company on the amount of 9,100. Sa ato ang journal entry, atong ibutan dito kay same March 23, the date first. Then we're going to debit the medical supplies kay it is an asset nga dungagan atong asset on the amount of 9,100. Then ato ang i-credit kay ang ato i-credit kay ang accounts payable kay it is a liability nga ni decrease with the amount of 9,100. It is to record the purchased medical supplies on account. Now let's proceed on March 24. On March 25, on March 25 is the paid salaries of the amount of 1,200. So ni hatag na tag sweldo og 11,200. So sa March 25, but nga tong date March 25, atong i-debit kay salaries expense kani increase man ato ang expenses and according sa rule ato siyang i-debit on the amount of 11,200. Then natuwa siyang i-credit ang cash kay nakuhaan man ato ang asset nga cash tungod sa nabayad nato sa salaries expense in the same amount of 11,200. It is to show to record the payments of salaries. Now let's proceed on March 26. On March 26, billed patients 40,150 pesos for service rendered. So ni-bill daw siya mga sa patients o 40,150 sa ato ang services. Same sa ato ang principle before, we have to put first the date, which is the March 26. Sa ato ang debit kay accounts receivable, kay it is an asset na ni-increase at ato ang amount. And ato ang amount na dawat kay 40,150. Then ato ang credit kay it is the medical revenues, kay dito man siya nagikan or ni-decrease ang amount nga ato na dawat, which is the 40,150. It is also to record the medical revenues. Now let's proceed on March 27. On March 27, paid Suiza Medical Supply Company in the amount of 6,150 on account. So si Samuel kanibayad na po siya sa Suiza Medical Supply Company in the amount of 6,150 on account. So we're going to put again the date, which is the March 27. Then ito ibutang atong debit, which is the accounts payable because it is the liability nga nagamit on the amount of 6,100. Then ato ang credit kay ang cash kay nakuha or decrease man ato ang asset, which is the cash and the same amount of 6,150. It is to record the medical supplies on account. And lastly, we're going to the March 28. In March 28, Samuel withdrew 15,000 from the medical practice. So, ni-withdraw siya mga 15,000 para sa medical practice. Then, ato sa journal entry, same as before, we're going to put the date. Then, atong ibutan dito ang debit kay Barbo's withdrawal, which is the Barbo's, yes, and with the amount of 15,000. Then ato ang credit kay cash, which is also in the amount of 15,000. Now it is to record the owner's withdrawals. So that is the end of my report. Thank you.